Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of covers, exploring an original track and then looking at another band who has covered it. Yesterday, we checked out Smashing Pumpkins' Bullets with Butterfly Wings. Today, we're going to see what About Bill has done with the track. And yes, I don't know if that's particularly the inflection the band wants with this, but their name is a question. What about Bill? All right. You may have watched the Smashing Pumpkins one yesterday. I had quite many revelations about that track. Despite having heard it probably 1,000 times in my lifetime, I still heard some new ideas in it, particularly some interesting phrasing in the chorus. If you want to check that out, I did put the link up in the corner just a little bit ago. We're going to dive into What About Bill here, see what their rendition is of it, exploring how they interpreted it, and then eventually looking at a comparison of theirs versus Smashing Pumpkins' vision for this track. Let's dive in and see what About Bill is bringing to the table.
The world is a vampire, sent to dry.
Lounge.
Secret destroyers hold you up to the flames. And why do I get for my pain? Betrayed desires and a piece of the game. Even though I know, I suppose I'll show all my cool and cold like old Joe. Despite all my rage, I am still just
Okay, this is fun.
Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. Then someone will say what is lost can never be saved. Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage.
So that dum-ba-dum-bum, that little syncopated hit at the end, works really well in this jazzier feel, especially when that syncopation is kind of built into the rhythm already.
For just one more show, and what do you want?
It's just a fun little idea here.
Change, and what have you got when you feel the same? Even though I know, I suppose I'll show all my cool and cold like old Joe. Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. Then someone will say what is lost can never
There's a lot of movement between the chords on this one.
Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage.
It's a very playful chord progression. It's not just the chords that we had on the original.
Tell me I'm the only one. Tell me there's no other one. Jesus was the only son, yeah. Tell me I'm the chosen one. Jesus was the only son for you.
Yeah, lots of bounciness to the chords.
I'm still just a rat in a cage. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. And someone will say what is lost can never be saved. Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage.
Oh, they're not. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Let's start with the good. And then we'll move into the part that I didn't like. This is a solid one-to-one cover, a genre reimaginization. That's not a word. I'm just making sounds up at the end of that, I suppose. This is a lounge version of the original, note for note. There are some deviations from it. For instance, the drums that bringing in a lot of syncopation to a drum part that was primarily done to drive and create tension. During the verse of the original, it was all toms in the bass guitar, really this low end rumbling, really feeling like it's building tension to explode into something. That's not what we get here. We get something a little light and dancey. It has nice syncopation to it. And we don't have too much of a bass presence along with it. We have this synth. So a bit of a medium range. It's missing the low end rumble, but it works perfectly for this. I think if they had gone just low end sound with the drums, it wouldn't have felt too loungy. I think this is the proper interpretation to bring that feeling into this genre. And not to mention that our vocalist, his range is much lower than Smashing Pumpkins' vocalist, so that brings in a resonance on the lower end that the rest of the instruments can play around with the higher parts and not have to worry about the song feeling like it's missing any low end to it. Other than that, though, I think for the most part, the verse is note for note. More chordal based than the original, but still very noticeable. You hear that, you're like, oh, dude, they're doing Bullet with Butterfly Wings. You don't even have to hear the words. You can just hear that bass line being present in that synth part. That takes us into the pre-chorus, which kind of just is. It doesn't really build intensity. We don't have the introduction of the rhythmic pattern that defined the original track here. And we get into the chorus, and this part actually has a really neat idea, and there's a lot of movement in the chordal ideas, particularly on this piano synth instrument. We do have the chords coming in, presenting these, the chord itself at the beginning of each 2-bar idea. And that allows us to go through the chord progression every other beat. But there's a lot of movement between these chordal hits too. There was a bounciness at one part where we had the bump, 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 bump. Those are going to be the chordal movements. We have bump, 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 bump. And we have this extra set of notes between each of the chord movements. But there's also a section, I think it was during the first chorus, where I heard maybe another instrument kind of having a moving melodic pattern. I couldn't quite make it out in the mix, and I don't remember hearing it again later. So I might have just been misinterpreting that, and it might have been this bouncing idea, but it felt, I don't know, more in line with the chordal pitch that we were already in. Regardless, changes to the original that I think work really well in adapting that rock sound for this loungier setting. Verse and chorus, the same. The bridge, kind of that same deal, keeping the energy at the level we're at, bringing this more syncopated drum part to it, synth focused, but bringing in the "Tell Me I'm the Only One" lyrics. And then that takes us to the end, which the big difference here is the omission of the "I still believe I cannot be saved." That driving part that wraps up the original song is omitted here. The song just ends on that final chorus. I want to make it clear here that I like this version. I think it's cool as a what if situation. I love listening to genre mashups like this, where the idea is, hey, what if this band made this song? Or what if this song was done in this genre? I love stuff like that. I get hooked on these channels that do things like this. And I think it's very entertaining. But from an artistic point of view, I don't get this song. And I kind of had an idea of where this might go, and they didn't go in that direction either. So let me start from the top here and explain my perspective on this. And let me preface here real quick too. The reasons why I'm not going to like this cover from an artistic perspective is totally about my perspective on what the song is saying versus what the music is saying, and finding a disconnect there that wasn't there in the original. Now, if the intention of What About Bill is entirely just to say, hey, what if this song was in another genre? Masterful. This song does a fantastic job, or this cover does a fantastic job of exploring that, including omitting things that they felt might not have worked and adding things to really lean into the flavor of this loungier style. They did a phenomenal job with that, of even rearranging the vocal melody to better fit the vocalist's range, presumably, or just to give it that more loungier feel of having a deeper, more resonant lead vocalist on the track. So I don't think that this song is bad in any way from that perspective. And if that's all that What About Bill wanted to do with this track, they fully succeeded at it. But from the perspective of artistic cohesion, this song is sorely lacking. The lyrics are about somebody who feels contained. They have much more to give, much more to offer. They have larger passions in life, and they're restricted to a small set of things. They can't fully be themselves. They can't fully explore their own path, and they don't feel in charge of their own life. They put up with these things so that they can explore this one element of themselves. I viewed this through the lens of an artist, a musician, whose producers and record label tell them, what songs to play, how to make small changes to their music to make them more palatable, what venues to play at, where they need to go. And while they get to make their music, there's also a lot of things about the musical process that are out of their power, and they feel contained by that. And they feel drained going into this whole process, that fighting back against all this is wiping them out. And my interpretation of the end of the track was that they decided to give up entirely and just continue to go through the motions of this whole process, because at least they still get to make their music. Bit of a downer ending, but a song filled with the rage and angst of this person who wants more out of their life. This song doesn't really go in that direction at all. In fact, the key element, the very first thing I even touched on yesterday talking about this track from Smashing Pumpkins, is the high contrast between the lulls in the post bridge and in the verse, and how light this stuff is, versus the heavy explosive energy of the chorus, about something contained erupting, fully matching the feelings of the lyrics in the music. We don't have any of that dynamic writing in this track at all. The verses, the pre-choruses, the choruses, they're all generally the same, which is right on the money for lounge. But it's artistically more divorced from the lyrics this way. The other thing is that one of the big elements of that third bar in the chorus, because it is a 3-bar phrase, which is a bit awkward. I looked into a lot of this yesterday and kind of explained my take on it and what it's supposed to represent, but that third bar is harmonically dissonant. The first two follow along with a pretty typical 4-chord phrase, and then we get 2 awkward chords that are more sonic texture than harmonically sound. This to me is supposed to be some sort of sonic fighting back, of taking that noise and that angst and that rage and putting it into your music, not necessarily through functional harmony, but through sonic texture painting. We don't really get that here either. And again, it would probably be a bit out of place for lounge. I do want to make that caveat there. But between all of that and the driving energy of the outro that leads into a petered out, wimpy ending of a track, that to me is the fire from inside being extinguished, that fire of rebellion being put out. The song ends up just being the lyrics in a different style, and it's missing a lot of the heart of the song. And that's why I wanted to go into this with all of that preface there, because I do think that this is a solid execution of what if this song in lounge. And I don't want What About Bill to feel, if they end up watching this, I don't even know. I don't want them to feel diminished or have their fire put out to continue to do stuff like this and, adventurous ideas. I don't know if they are a loungy style band, or if this was just a rogue idea they had. But the execution on that idea of let's make Bullet with Butterfly Wings as a lounge track is phenomenally done. They did an excellent job in the conceptualization, the execution, the performance, the production, all of that is great. But I don't think I would ever listen to this version other than the original because it's missing that synergy. And y'all know how important thematic synergy is for me. So I guess I'm like 50-50 on this. Great execution, but they lost a lot of the heart along the way. And so this feels more like a fun exercise more than, a strong reinterpretation of the track. And both sides of those are fine. Making fun music is definitely a valid way of expressing yourself artistically. And I don't want anyone to walk away from this thinking that I hate fun adventures musically. But the more I listened to this, I was like, oh, okay, they're going to lean into this more depressive side. The end of the song is this guy's fire being extinguished. He just can't fight back that way anymore. And the song kind of being a bit more down tempo, I was like, okay, maybe they're going to lean into that. But they never did. And that was also me putting expectations on the song it wasn't going to meet. That's not fair to it. But that was also me wanting to find thematic resonance in here and kind of hoping we'd see another angle on that. And that's just not the way they wanted to take it either. So, very well done for what it is. I'll leave it at that. It's well done for what it is. I don't need to put any extension on that. I greatly enjoyed my time with this. And these are my thoughts on What About Bill, Bullet with Butterfly Wings. What did you think of this, though? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own interpretation or opinion on this track. Let me know. Put that stuff down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.